Hi, George here, and we'll be taking a look here at Adobe's Photoshop Elements program. And if you're brand new to Photoshop Elements, this is the video that you need to watch. We'll be starting off right here with the very first screen you see when you first open up Photoshop Elements. So we'll do the complete workflow here. And when you're finished, you'll understand how to work with Photoshop Elements. Now, of course, it's a complex program. You can do a lot of stuff with it. That's why I have a channel with hundreds of videos on how to use Photoshop Elements. So check out my channel after you've watched this video, and you'll find, I'm sure, the answers to your questions over there. Okay, we'll start off right here. Again, this is the first screen you see when you open up Adobe's Photoshop Elements program. Across the top right up here, these are just some looks at some of the new features for the current version. Down below here, left-hand side, if you're just upgrading to this new version, you can take a look here, select your version, and then see what has been added since that version. Nice little feature for upgraders. Right-hand side, bottom corner, we have recently opened files down here, so you can get back to things that you've been working on previously. But for our uses today, and what you will normally be doing, is looking at just these buttons right in here. The organizer helps you to organize your images. The photo editor is for editing photos, obviously, and the video editor is for editing videos. We won't be talking about this in this video because that's a separate program. We're looking at just these two in here. Now, if you're working with the photo, you can either open that up in Organizer, or you can bring that directly into the photo editor. I'll be showing you both techniques. Let's just assume that we're going over here into the Organizer. Click on this button. This will then open up the Photoshop Elements Organizer. Here we are inside of the Photoshop Elements Organizer, and we're looking at a lot of the pictures that I've been working with over the past couple of years here, mostly for my training videos here on YouTube. And you can use this to help organize things. You can add keywords and tags. You can organize your images by albums, make new albums, and so forth, or take a look at them in folder locations. So there's a lot of ways here of working with your images. Makes it very easy when you begin having a lot of pictures. But when you first come into Photoshop Elements, you're not going to be seeing this. You'll be seeing an empty page. Let me just set that up for you quickly here. I'll go up to File, and we'll come down here to Manage Catalogs. And I'll just make a brand new catalog. And I'll call it 2023. I'm not going to be importing anything into this. And here we go. This is how the organizer is going to look when you first open the program up. You get this little importing screen right here. And this only shows up just the first time you open this up. So I'm going to close this down. There we go. And I'll show you the steps you go through to bring images into or photos into the Photoshop Elements Organizer. Now you can bring them in from several locations, and the easy way is go up here, upper left-hand corner, big button there says Import, and here you can choose where you want to import these from. Files and folders, in other words, this is going to be pictures already on your computer. That's how I normally work. I will take my camera, and I will take the pictures from my camera and put those into a folder on my computer, and I'll then bring them from that folder here into the organizer. You can, though, if you want to, go straight from your camera or a card reader. It's up to you. You also can scan right into Photoshop Elements. And using the In Bulk option here allows you to bring in images from OneDrive if you're using that, or from your Pictures folder. You can even add additional folders to watch. But normally, I'll just go up here, click on Import, and come down to From Files and Folders. This brings up a drive window on your computer, just your standard drive window as you can see in here. And this is one of my folders that I use. And we'll come down and we'll bring in a picture I have right down in here, which is that one right there. It'll bring this picture in. Choose Open. That then imports that picture. Now, this will be coming into a folder that's just marked up here, Sort by Newest. And this will only show you what you just brought in. We only have one picture, so that's all we see. Click on the back button here, and this gives you all of your images. I'm going to import just a few more pictures here just so we have something to work with. Back up to Import, Files and Folders, and I'll grab just a few more pictures out of this same folder in here. I'll hold the Control key down so I can select just an assortment of pictures. I'm not grabbing these in any particular order, just to have something to put into our folder. There's one that we just used right here. Kind of a nice image right there, kind of a dark image. Do that one, and then choose Open. And again, these come into a window here that only showed the things that you just imported. Notice that that first one that we imported is not showing here. If you want to see that, go up here where it says Back, click on that, and you're now looking at everything that you've imported into Photoshop Elements. Now, we brought these in two batches. If you want to see what you've brought in just looking at a particular batch or a date, where it says Sort By, this is normally sorting by newest. You can also sort by oldest or name, or import batch right here. Here's our first import batch. Here's our second import batch. Now, this is important to know because if you're up here where it says newest, this is not newest as in what you have imported most recently. This is newest as in the date that the file first showed up on your computer. Now, if you are importing from your phone or from your camera, that date is going to be the same as the date right now. So that would then be your newest images. But if you're importing from other locations, copying on your computer, they're on your computer for a while, you bring some more in on your computer or some more camera images, and then you bring those into Photoshop Elements, they may not be in the same sequence that you would expect up here. So newest is referring to the file date of when the image was created or when it first was placed onto your computer. Not necessarily when you brought that into Elements. That is what you see right here with import batch. And this will be by date with the newest at the top. Okay, so we now have our picture in here, which is right there. Notice if I click on the picture, it gets a little check mark. We can select individual images like this, or hold the control key down. You can select multiple images. Instead, what we want to do is to take this image and get this over into the Photoshop Elements editor. And the easy way is just to right click on your picture, brings up a pop-up menu like that, and edit with Photoshop Elements editor right here. There's also a button at the bottom of the page. You can click on that one, or we can go over here to edit, and then here's edit with the Photoshop Elements editor. Notice we also have a keyboard shortcut here, Control I. This will take it right over to the editor. I think I stands for import in this case. But the easy way, just click on the image, make sure it's checked, right click, and then edit with the Photoshop Elements editor right there. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this. This will then launch that program. So again, these are separate programs. They can run at the same time. Don't worry about that. You can then switch back and forth between the two using buttons at the bottom of the screen. And here we go. It's now inside of the Photoshop Elements editor. Now, normally I don't use the organizer for bringing images in here into the editor. I'll just go straight to the editor and open them up from here. Let me show you how that's done. I'll just close this down right there. I'm not going to bother saving it. And then go up to File, come down to Open right here, or just click on the Open button right here. This opens up a standard computer file window. And then I'll find the image I want to use. And the one that we are doing is right down here. There it is. Choose Open. Same thing. We're back here again. Same image, open up inside of the editor without going through the organizer. So whether or not you want to use the organizer, that's up to you. You can bring images in here either way, either using the file open here from the editor or go through the organizer. Now the editor gives us three modes of working. The quick mode right here, which has real fast adjustments for smart fix, exposure, lighting, color, balance, and sharpen. These are real easy to use if you are brand new to the program. For instance, we'll go here to color, click on that, it opens this up, and you can then roll over these samples in here and simply choose the sample that you like the best. It's very easy to use that way, but there's not as much control. We'll be doing this in a more controlled manner, but this is very easy if you want a real fast, quick adjustment just by looking at some thumbnails and just seeing samples. Over here on guided, these are special edits that can help you with special steps that you want to go through. For instance, removing objects in an image. Here's an example of that. Just roll your mouse over these thumbnails. Here's rotate and straighten. Here's brightness and contrast. These are all in the basics section. We have several tabs up here: basics, color, black and white, fun edits, special edits, and photo merge. And I have several tutorials on how to use a lot of these different guided edits, but these are for specific uses. We'll be doing brightness and contrast on our image. So look at the brightness contrast. Just click on that. You'll then load your image in here. And on the right-hand side, you'll have some basic controls. And depending on what the effect is, you may have a few or a lot of things right here on the right-hand side. Now with these guided edits, you normally work from the top down to the bottom of the stack. We have two options here, auto fix and brightness contrast. And this actually is not the best way to do this kind of an adjustment for a picture. So I'll just come down here, bottom right-hand corner, and cancel. Let's now move over to the Expert tab. Now, Expert here, this is a bit misleading. You don't have to be an expert to use the Expert tab. As a matter of fact, beginners can use this just as well. Obviously, the more experience you have, the easier this becomes, but this is where you really should be doing most of your work when you're in Photoshop Elements. I prefer to consider this as being full or complete. All of your tools are available here for you under the Expert tab. That's really what it means. You have all of your tools available. So we now have our basic image in here. Left-hand side, you'll find your tools. At the bottom, we have the photo bin, which is right there. To the right of the photo bin is the tool options. And as you change tools over here, the tool options down below will change. So you choose a tool up here, such as the paintbrush tool, and then you can adjust that tool in the tool options panel at the bottom of the screen. Right-hand side, we normally have the layers showing over here. You can show other stuff, but the layers is your main panel on the right-hand side. There are quite a few more panels. Go up here to Window and you'll see the whole list in here: actions, adjustments, color swatches, and so forth. Right now we'll be ignoring all of that stuff. That's not important for this basic video. Let's now take a look at our image here and do a standard workflow for improving this. The first thing you want to do is to examine the image and see what it is that needs to be fixed. Obviously the contrast is a little bit low in here. The saturation is a little bit low possibly. I want a bit more color in here, maybe a bit brighter. On the right hand side, notice that the layer over here says background. And they can have multiple layers, and I love using layers. It's a great way to work with and protect your images. And we'll be doing that. Now, if you're brand new, I recommend after you watch this video, watch my video on how to use layers. I have a whole video just on that one topic, and I'll put a link for that right up there in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, the first thing you want to do, and I always do this, is to right-click where it says background and choose duplicate layer, and then choose OK. What this does is it makes a copy of that layer. Right here is a little eye. Click on that and that hides that one. This is now our safety. If we come in here and we mess this up at all, I can always delete this layer and come back to my original right there. It's saved right here in the file. So I have a backup safety just in case. Okay, so I want to make adjustments in here. Now there are two ways of making adjustments. Go up here to the Enhance menu. In here we have all of our auto fixes in here, smart fixes and so forth. I tend to not like these that well. They tend to be okay, but not great. I prefer having more control over that. And that's right down here, mostly on your adjust color and your adjust lighting sections right in here. Adjust color lets you remove color cast, adjust hue saturation, things like that. Adjust lighting is your brightness and darkness, shadows and highlights. I almost always use the levels control right here, and I'll show you how to use that in just a bit. We also can convert to black and white or colorize a black and white image, and some more fun stuff right down here. Notice this whole time I'm really staying over on just one tool, left-hand side, the Move tool, which is that tool right here. We won't be doing anything fancy with these other tools in this video. We don't need to. So we'll just be sticking with the Move tool. Okay, so we can come in here and make our adjustments right from this section, but this will make the adjustment right on this layer. In other words, we're changing the actual pixels on the layer, and we can't go back and fix those or change those in the future. Obviously, we're safe here because we made that background save, so we have a background to go back to just in case. But it would be nice if we didn't have to have that limitation. If we could make some adjustments and then go back and tweak them later on. And there is a way of doing that. And I recommend always doing your edits this way whenever you can. You can't always do it this way, but when you can, I recommend doing that. And that's going over here, one menu option to Layer, and come down to Adjustment Layer. And notice we have just a few things in here, levels and brightness. These are both from the lighting option over here, Enhance and Adjust Lighting. And then we have Hue Saturation. And the Hue Saturation is over here from Enhance and Adjust Color. Right there, Hue Saturation. What these do is these put in a new layer on top of your working layer, which acts like a filter. Let me show you how that works. We'll go here to Levels. Now in here it says Use Previous Layer. Most of the time you're going to want to have that one checked. That means that it's going to be applying this adjustment just to the one layer that you're on. Just make a habit of normally checking that. Sometimes you don't want that, but most of the time you do anyway, so just keep that as a habit. Okay, and notice what happened here. We have a new little floating palette in here, little adjustment dialog box. On the right-hand side, there's a new layer in here above our working layer, and it says Levels. Notice how it's indented a little bit. The indent is from that checkbox that we just checked. That means that this adjustment is only going to be applied to this one layer, and I'll show you that in just a second. Now in here, the main thing you care about is this window right here. This shows you the values in the image. Notice we have a lot of mid-tone values, a lot of darker values, very few light values. So obviously the image needs to be brightened up, easy to see. The left-hand side over here, this is your black point. The right-hand side is your white point, and this one is your midpoint, your mid-tone gray. So if I want to have my blacks darker, I'll take the left-hand side and I'll pull that in a little bit like that. Notice how it darkens those down. Don't go too far. Things begin to block up like that. So bring it in just a little bit. Right-hand side, this brightens the lights up. Again, don't go too far or it goes weird. So you can brighten the lights up a little bit in here. And then you mid-tone, adjust your mid-tone values. So it's kind of a balancing act between these. When you bring these in from the sides, you're actually increasing the contrast on the whole image. But you're increasing it darks separately from lights, so you have more control in here over your image contrast. And I'm bringing both in just a little bit here. Obviously, I brought the light side in more than I did the dark side. To close this, just close that window right here, and that adjustment is applied. Now, I said you can go back and readjust, and that's what I like about this. First, here it is without and with, so I can double check that. Just hide and show that layer. If I want to tweak this or change it, just double click on this icon up here for the adjustment. Brings that back up again, and now I can come back in and adjust. So you have a lot more control in here when using an adjustment layer than you would normally have if you just applied the adjustment right to your image layer. Okay, so we've adjusted our contrast now. We've brightened the picture up a little bit. We now need to increase the color in the image. So for that, same thing. Let's go back up here to the layer menu, come down to new adjustment layer, and hue, saturation. We care about saturation. Bring this one up. Again, where it says use previous layer, check that, choose OK. And the middle control here, saturation, that's the one you want to work with. Don't do the hue, this changes your colors. Don't do lightness. We took care of that with the other control, which is a better control. So just come into saturation and go a little bit to the right, and that brings in more color. There's less color, there's a lot more color. Let's go just a little ways to the right and bring in a bit more color. So it's now more colorful and better contrast, and we've dramatically improved our image by doing that. We can see that again just by hiding those layers. There's it before, and here it is after. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to do a little trick here so we can see how this actually looks. Let's come down to our background layer, right click. I'll duplicate this again. There we go. I'll take this layer. You can reorder layers in here by dragging them. I'll take this layer, I'll drag it up to the top like that. Let go. Here's the original look. I'll hide that. And here's our new cleaned up look. So original and improved. Vastly improved, easy to do with full control here. Okay, so we've now gone through, we've brought our picture into Photoshop Elements. Let's now take this out again. Go up to File, come down to Save. Choose where you want to save this. I'm saving this again as a Photoshop file, the PSD file format. The reason I'm doing this is that the Photoshop file format saves all the layers. So if I want to come back and make adjustments in the future, I can do it. Just go back and open up the PSD file, the Photoshop file, and I'll have all the layers again to make adjustments in the future. So it's a good way to save it that way. So just choose Save. Now, if you need to have this for use on the internet, then you're going to be wanting a JPEG or a PNG file. And the easy way there is just to go up here to File, come down to Save As, and then change your type down here. There's your JPEG file type, and here's your PNG file type. Use whichever one you like using. I normally use PNGs nowadays, mostly because they also will allow transparency. We don't have it in our picture, so it's not an issue here, but I tend to be using PNGs most of the time. Choose Save. So we're going to have our PNG version of this and that Photoshop version of this, which retains all of the layers right-hand side. If you want to make a print of this, easy to do. Go up here to File, come down to Print right here, and this brings up the Print dialog box. Left-hand side, you'll see your image. You actually can stack multiple images in here to print one copy of each. Right-hand side, top is your printer. Most people only have one printer, so you see that up here. Here's your printer settings. I'm going to change my setting here. It says rear tray. I don't want that. I'll change my settings here. I'm going to change this to automatically selected, which should give me the cassette, or I can change to cassette. Choose OK. That's where my paper is loaded in right now. Here's the paper size. Select type of print. We have individual prints. Now, picture package and contact sheets. These actually cannot be printed here from the Elements editor. These will take you over into the organizer and are used for multiple pictures on a page. So most of the time we don't care about that anyway. Print size, come down here to crop to fit. And I'll set this for an 8x10. And there we go. That now gives me an 8x10 picture on my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And one copy. And then all you have to do is just click on print, and it will then send that to your printer. Okay, so there is how to take your image, clear through adjustments, and then clear out to saving it, different formats, and also printing your final file. If you want to go back to the organizer, you can do that right down below here. We have a button for the organizer. This will then open this up in the organizer again. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here we go. And notice that we now have 3 images over here left-hand side. The first one is the original. The second one here, this is the one that we're working on right now. Notice there's a little padlock in here, little red block and a padlock. This is the Photoshop file. It's opened up in Photoshop Elements. And the left side, this is that PNG that we saved. Now, these are all real small. You can actually change the size in here. There's a zoom control down here, bottom right-hand corner. And I can then zoom that in and get bigger pictures to look at. There we go. So here's the original. Here's our working file. And here's the PNG that we saved it out to. So you'll have all of your saved versions showing up here inside of the organizer. Now go back to the editor, and there you go. That's how to use Photoshop Elements. Now it can do a whole lot more. This is just scratching the surface. It's a very capable program for doing almost anything that you want. So take a look at my channel where I literally have hundreds of videos on how to do different things inside of Photoshop Elements, including changing colors, removing backgrounds, putting different backgrounds in here, taking people out, putting people in, almost anything you can think of. I have videos for how to do that on my channel. So make sure you take a look at that. Also, if you want to really learn how to use Photoshop Elements, take a look at my complete training course for Photoshop Elements. There's a link for that right down there in the description. Make sure you hit like on this video. Also, make sure you subscribe. I do new videos all the time for Photoshop Elements, and I'll see you next time.